I always believed betrayal came from strangers, not from the people you call family. But the woman I once introduced as my sister, the one I trusted with my deepest secrets, she didn't just stab me in the back. She stole the one person I thought would never leave my side. And the truth? It destroyed everything. Before I tell you the rest of this story, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon, because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Growing up, I always dreamed of having a sister, someone who would braid my hair before school, share clothes with me, whisper secrets into the night. But I was an only child. My mother used to smile and tell me, not everyone is lucky enough to have a sister by blood, but sometimes life gives you one by choice. I never understood what she meant until I met her. Her name was Clara. We weren't related. She wasn't my cousin, not even a family friend. She was just a girl I met through work, sitting 2 desks away, sipping coffee as though the world already belonged to her. There was something magnetic about her. The way she laughed, the way she could turn an ordinary moment into something unforgettable. And slowly, she became my everything. We started spending weekends together, shopping, movie nights, long car rides with the windows down screaming our favorite songs. I remember once she looked at me and said, "You're more than a friend, you're like a sister." My heart melted. For the first time, I felt that missing piece click into place. Soon she was in every corner of my life. Holidays, she was there helping me decorate the tree. Birthdays, she baked the cake. Bad days at work, she was on my couch holding a glass of wine out to me before I even asked. I trusted her with everything. My fears, my hopes, my private thoughts I had never even shared with my mother. But now, when I look back, I see the tiny cracks I ignored. Sometimes she would turn compliments into competitions. If someone told me my dress looked nice, she would laugh and say, "Yeah, but wait until you see mine." When I shared dreams about my future, she would tilt her head and say, "We'll see if you can actually pull that off." Little things, subtle things. I brushed them aside because that's what sisters do, right? Tease each other, push each other. I told myself I was overthinking, but deep down, there was always a flicker of doubt, a whisper telling me that maybe, just maybe, her smile wasn't always as genuine as I believed. I ignored it. I wanted a sister too badly to question it. There's one night I'll never forget. We were sitting on my balcony, staring at the city lights. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said softly, "Promise me, no matter what happens, we'll always have each other." I laughed and said, "Of course, sisters for life." And I meant it, every word. But if I knew what was coming, I would have never spoken that promise aloud. Because she wasn't just about to break our bond, she was about to destroy my entire world. Cliffhanger, end of section 1. I thought she'd be my forever sister, but she was about to destroy everything. When I met Daniel, I thought my life was complete. It wasn't one of those movie-style romances where sparks fly instantly. No, it was quieter than that. Softer. He noticed the little things. The way I always tucked my hair behind my ear when I was nervous. The way I laughed too loud when I was excited. And slowly, he became my safe place. Clara was there from the beginning. She was the first person I called when Daniel asked me out, squealing louder than I did. She helped me pick out dresses for our dates, listened to every detail of his texts, and even teased me when I couldn't stop smiling at my phone. When Daniel proposed, Clara hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. She whispered, "You deserve this. I'm so happy for you." On my wedding day, she stood beside me, tears glistening in her eyes as if she were the sister of the bride. She gave a toast at the reception, loud, heartfelt, funny. Everyone loved her. And me? I felt blessed. My husband on one side, my sister by choice on the other. I thought life couldn't get better than that. But that was my first mistake, thinking happiness is permanent. After the wedding, Clara was everywhere. She came over for dinners, joined us for weekend trips, even helped me plan our first anniversary surprise for Daniel. She became my go-to confidant. When I doubted myself as a wife, she reassured me. When Daniel and I fought, she was the one I called. And she always had the right words. Almost too perfect. Don't worry, he loves you. Don't worry, men just get stressed. Give him time. You're overthinking again. Trust me, I know him. Looking back, those words should have stung differently. But at the time, they wrapped around me like comfort. I trusted her blindly. One evening, I remember telling her something that makes me sick now. I said, "You're the only person I'd trust with Daniel if I wasn't around." She smiled, almost too long before replying softly, "Don't worry, I'll always take care of him." I thought she meant it as reassurance. I thought she was promising to protect me, protect us. But now, when I replay that moment, I hear the truth beneath her words. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting her own secret. Because while I was busy believing I had built the perfect little family, a husband and a sister, they were busy building something else, something I wasn't supposed to see. I thought she was protecting me, but she was protecting her own secret. At first, everything seemed normal, too normal. Daniel would kiss me goodbye in the mornings, tell me he loved me, and then head off to work. Clara still popped by often, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with gossip, always with that familiar smile. But slowly, little things began to change. I started noticing how often Daniel's phone lit up at night. He would smile at the screen, type quickly, then turn the phone face down. "Oh, work emails," he'd say, forcing a yawn, pretending to be too tired to talk. But who laughs at work emails? One night, as I passed by the living room, I saw him grinning at his phone like a teenager. My chest tightened. I wanted to ask, but I froze. What if I sounded paranoid? What if I ruined everything by not trusting him? So I did what I always did. I called Clara. "He's been so distant lately," I whispered, trying to hold back tears. She chuckled softly, almost too casually. "That's just men, honey. They get distracted. You're reading too much into it." Her words were meant to soothe me, but her voice had a sharpness I couldn't name, like she was rehearsing lines she had prepared long before I asked the question. The days rolled into weeks, and the signs grew harder to ignore. Daniel started coming home late, blaming deadlines. He smelled of a perfume that wasn't mine. And every time I mentioned it, Clara was quick to defend him. "If he says he's working, then he's working. Don't make a problem where there isn't one." Why did she always rush to shield him? Then, she began showing up at my house without calling. At first, it felt comforting, like she knew when I needed her most. But soon, it became suffocating. She was always there, folding laundry with me, cooking in my kitchen, sitting too close to Daniel on the couch when we watched movies. And Daniel, he laughed harder at her jokes than mine. He looked at her longer than necessary. Once, I walked into the room and caught the two of them whispering. They pulled apart instantly, smiling too brightly. My stomach dropped, but my heart betrayed me. It told me I was imagining things. Because how could I ever believe that my husband and my sister, would betray me like that? Still, doubt ate at me. Nights became restless. I stared at the ceiling, asking myself questions I didn't want the answers to. But then, one night, everything changed. Daniel's phone rang. It was late, too late. He rushed to the balcony, speaking in a low, tender voice. I couldn't hear all the words, but I heard enough. Enough to freeze me where I stood. Because the way he said, "I miss you too," wasn't the way a husband speaks to his boss, or even a friend. It was the way a man speaks to someone he shouldn't be speaking to at all. And when I leaned closer, when I held my breath to catch the faintest reply, my blood turned to ice. It wasn't a colleague. It wasn't a stranger. It was her voice, Clara. And then, one night, I heard his voice through the phone, but he wasn't talking to me. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that what I heard on the phone was just my imagination, twisting things. But the truth has a way of clawing its way out, no matter how hard you try to bury it. The next day, while Daniel was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. My heart raced. I told myself not to look, that I wasn't that kind of wife. But my hands moved before my mind could stop them. I unlocked it, and there it was. Her name, Clara. Dozens of messages, not just simple texts, but intimate confessions. I can't stop thinking about last night. She has no idea. It almost feels wrong. Almost. You make me feel alive in ways she never could. My chest tightened. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. I scrolled further, hoping, praying I was misreading it, but every word cut deeper. And then, a picture. Her picture, smiling, the same smile I had trusted for years. My knees buckled, and I sank onto the bed, clutching the phone like it was proof of my own stupidity. Every memory flashed before me. Every time I defended her, every time I believed Daniel's excuses, every time I silenced that whisper inside me. I felt sick, betrayed, shattered. When Daniel walked out of the shower, towel around his waist, he saw me sitting there with the phone in my lap. His face drained of color. "It's not what you think," he stammered. I laughed. A hollow, bitter sound I didn't recognize as my own. "Then tell me, Daniel, what is it? What exactly do I think it is?" He reached for me, but I pulled away like his touch was fire. I wanted to scream, to break things, to demand answers, but all I could do was cry. Silent, heaving sobs that ripped through me. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every moment of the past year. Clara's reassurances, her uninvited visits, the way she sat too close, the way she always defended him. And suddenly, it all made sense. The next time I saw Clara, I couldn't hide it anymore. I confronted her, my voice trembling. "How could you? You knew what he meant to me. You knew what we had." For a split second, guilt flickered across her face. But then she smiled. Cold, empty. "Maybe you just weren't enough for him." Her words pierced deeper than the betrayal itself. That night, I locked myself in my room and sobbed until my body went numb. It wasn't just about losing my husband. It was about losing her, the woman I thought was my sister, my confidant, my safe place. The silence of those nights was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Every tick of the clock reminded me of what I'd lost. Every creak of the house reminded me I was alone. But what hurt the most wasn't just the act of betrayal. It was the timeline. Because as I pieced together messages, dates, and excuses, I realized this hadn't been a mistake. It wasn't a drunken accident. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It had been going on for months, maybe even longer. And that shattered me more than anything else. Because they hadn't just betrayed me once, they had chosen to betray me again and again and again. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The weight of betrayal pressed down on my chest until I thought I'd suffocate. My hands trembled as I stormed into the living room, where Daniel sat casually watching TV as if nothing had happened. I stood there, staring at him. My voice broke, but it carried more anger than fear. "How long?" He looked up, confused. "What are you talking about?" I stepped closer, fists clenched. "Don't play with me, Daniel. How long have you been sleeping with Clara?" The remote slipped from his hand. Silence. His face went pale, but his eyes darted, searching for excuses, for lies, for escape. "It's not like that," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Not like that?" My voice cracked. "You betrayed me with her, my sister, in all but blood, the woman I trusted with my life." He stood, reaching for me, but I shoved him back with all the strength my rage gave me. Tears blurred my vision, but the fury burned brighter. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? To us?" I shouted. My voice echoed through the house, bouncing off the walls like knives. And then Clara walked in. She must have heard me screaming. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, that smug look plastered on her face like she owned a place. "Oh, so you finally found out," she said coldly. Something inside me snapped. "How could you?" I screamed, pointing at her. "You called yourself my sister. You stayed in my home. You looked me in the eye every day while you were stealing my husband behind my back." For a moment, just a flicker, I saw guilt in her eyes. But then she smirked. Cold, empty. "Maybe you just weren't enough for him." Her words sliced through me like glass. Daniel tried to intervene, raising his hands. "Stop, both of you. This isn't helping." I spun on him. "Helping? You destroyed our marriage. You destroyed me. And you—" I turned back to Clara, my voice trembling with fury. "You destroyed everything I thought I knew about love, about family, about loyalty." Tears streamed down my face, but I refused to break in front of them. My voice shook, but it was sharp, cutting. "You didn't just betray me once. You betrayed me every single day you lied, every time you smiled at me, every time you said you loved me. And you—" I glared at Daniel. "You let it happen. You chose her. Over me. Over us." The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Clara finally broke it. "Maybe you should stop playing the victim. Men don't cheat unless something's missing at home." Those words, they shattered me. They weren't just daggers, they were poison. I collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. My whole body shook as the truth sank deeper. This wasn't just betrayal, it was cruelty. They didn't care about what they had done to me. They weren't sorry. They were blaming me. Daniel sank onto the opposite chair, burying his face in his hands, and for the first time, I saw regret in his eyes. But it was too late for apologies, too late for promises, too late for us. I wiped my tears, stood tall, and whispered, my voice hoarse but steady. "You don't get to break me. Not anymore. Both of you are dead to me." And with that, I walked out of the house. The night air hit my face, cold and sharp, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside me. My legs trembled, my heart ached, but for the first time since the truth came out, I felt free. The night I walked out, I didn't sleep. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing, my tears finally drying into a hollow ache. My world had collapsed. But beneath the rebel, something new stirred. Revenge. I wasn't going to scream anymore. I wasn't going to beg for answers or for love that was never truly mine. No. If they thought they could betray me and walk away unscathed, they didn't know me at all. The first thing I did was call my best friend, Leela. She was the only one I trusted with my darkest truths. When she picked up, I could barely get the words out. They betrayed me, Leela. Clara and Daniel. Together. There was silence, then a sharp inhale. Oh my God, are you serious? Your sister, your husband. Yes, I whispered. They think they've won, but they haven't. Leela's voice hardened. Then make sure they regret every second of it. That's when my plan began. I knew Clara better than anyone. Her weaknesses, her insecurities, the things she tried so hard to hide. I also knew Daniel, his pride, his arrogance, his career that he guarded more than his own family. If I wanted to hit them where it hurt, I had to use what I knew. The first step was simple: exposure. I started collecting evidence, messages, photos, late-night calls. Daniel had been careless, thinking I was too blind with love to notice. Clara had been reckless, leaving little trails of perfume and whispers in the dark. I gathered everything, like pieces of a puzzle, until I had the whole ugly picture.
Then came the second step: silence. I didn't confront them again. I acted as if I was broken beyond repair, as if I had disappeared into myself. I ignored Daniel's half-hearted attempts to reach out. I didn't answer Clara's smug texts asking if I was okay. I vanished from their world, and in that silence, they grew comfortable, arrogant. That's when I struck. At a family gathering, one Clara had begged me not to attend because she wanted space, I walked in, calm, dressed in the brightest red dress I owned. Everyone's eyes turned to me, but I didn't flinch. I waited until dinner was served, until the chatter was loud, until Clara leaned close to Daniel, pretending she belonged at his side. Then I stood, raised my glass, and smiled. "I'd like to make a toast," I said. The room went quiet. All eyes were on me. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Clara's face froze. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the speaker, and pressed play. Their voices filled the room. Clara's giggles, Daniel's whispers, their plans, their lies, message after message, proof after proof. The gasps around the table were deafening. My mother covered her mouth in horror. My father's face darkened with rage. Friends, cousins, aunts, everyone turned to Clara and Daniel, their faces twisted with disgust. Clara jumped up, shouting, "She's lying! She's twisting everything!" But it was too late. The evidence spoke louder than her protests. Daniel sat frozen, pale as a ghost. I looked right at them and said calmly, "You wanted each other? Now you can have each other. But don't expect respect. Don't expect loyalty. Not from me, not from anyone here." The room erupted. Whispers, judgment, accusations, all aimed at them. Clara's face crumbled. Daniel buried his head in his hands. I walked out of that house with my head high, the whispers following me like applause. That night, I realized something powerful. Revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about reclaiming yourself. And I had done just that. After that family gathering, Clara and Daniel's worlds crumbled. Their secret was no longer a secret. Their faces, once smug and untouchable, were now etched with shame. But shame doesn't always stop people. Sometimes it makes them desperate. 2 weeks later, Clara showed up at my door. I almost didn't open it, but something in me wanted to see her fall apart. I wanted to look into the eyes of the woman who once called me sister. When I opened the door, she stood there with mascara streaked cheeks, trembling hands clutching her phone. She whispered, "Please, you have to talk to me." I crossed my arms. Talk or lie? Her lips quivered. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I was lonely. I envied you. I thought if I could have what you had, maybe I'd feel whole. But I was wrong." Her words were pitiful, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. "I destroyed you," I said flatly. "You took my trust, my husband, my family's respect, and you burned it all down. You don't get to stand here and play the victim." Tears spilled down her face. "She'd just want my sister back." That was the moment I knew she was still clinging to the bond I had already buried. I shook my head slowly. Sisters don't betray sisters. You were never my sister. You were just a stranger I let too close. I closed the door on her sobs, and with that single action, I felt chains fall off my chest. But Daniel wasn't done either. He called. He texted. He even showed up at my workplace once, begging me to start over, saying Clara meant nothing, that it was a mistake. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is leaving the oven on. Betrayal is not a mistake. It's a choice, and you chose her. Now live with it." He lowered his head, and for the first time, I saw him not as the man I once loved, but as a coward, a man who threw away his life for fleeting temptation. After that, I blocked him, permanently. And that's when healing truly began. I threw myself into therapy, into rediscovering who I was without them. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, painting, writing, long walks under the stars. I traveled to places I'd always dreamed of, even just for a weekend. With every step, I built a new version of myself, stronger, clearer, untouchable. One evening, months later, I passed Clara and Daniel on the street. They were together, but they looked nothing like the victorious couple they once imagined they'd be. Clara's face was gaunt, Daniel's eyes hollow. They avoided my gaze, but I didn't avoid theirs. I walked right past them, smiling. Not because I forgave them, not because I forgot, but because I was free. They no longer had power over me. That night, lying in bed, I thought of all the women and men who have been betrayed by the people they loved most. How easy it is to let betrayal harden your heart, to let it poison your soul. But I had chosen a different path. Not forgiveness, not revenge, but liberation. Because in the end, the real revenge is living well, loving yourself, and showing them that your betrayal was not your ending, it was your beginning. Family isn't always blood, and loyalty isn't always where you expect it. Sometimes the people who call you sister are the ones who will hurt you most. But betrayal doesn't define you. Your response does. So if you've ever been broken like I was, remember this. Let it break the bond, not you. You're stronger than the people who hurt you. Always.